The long night. The darkness inside the soddy felt absolute, thick as wool despite the single candle Eleanor had lit and placed on the table. Sarah sat with her back against the rough wall, the rifle across her lap, her hands still trembling. The cut on her temple had stopped bleeding, but the dried blood pulled at her skin when she moved. Every sound outside, the wind rattling the door, a coyote's distant howl, the creak of settling timber, made her grip the weapon tighter. Eleanor stood at the window, peering through a gap in the blanket they'd hung over it. Thomas sat on his bed, wide-eyed and silent, clutching the old quilt their grandmother had made. He hadn't asked questions yet, but Sarah could see them building behind his frightened gaze. "Mama," he finally whispered. "Why are we hiding?" Eleanor turned from the window, her face drawn in the candlelight. "There are bad men who want our land, Thomas. Men who don't care about what's right or wrong." "Like the Hendersons?" His voice cracked. "Are we going to disappear too?" Sarah felt something twist in her chest. She set the rifle aside and moved to sit beside her brother, wrapping her arm around his thin shoulders. "No," she said, and was surprised by the firmness in her voice. "We're not running. Not this time." Eleanor's eyes met hers across the room, and Sarah saw fear there, but also something else, fierce maternal determination that reminded her of a barn cat defending her kittens. "Sarah's right," Eleanor said. She crossed to the table and picked up William Garrett's letter, the paper now creased and smudged with dirt from the mine. "We have something they don't expect. We have the truth." Sarah thought of Robert Kane's face in the lantern light, the cold calculation in his eyes before he'd lunged at her. The truth might save them, but first they had to survive long enough to use it. The hours crawled by. Eleanor took first watch, while Sarah tried to rest, though sleep seemed impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in the mine shaft, feeling Kane's hands around her throat, the sickening moment of the fall. She'd killed a man tonight, or at least she'd caused his death. The knowledge sat in her stomach like a stone. She must have dozed eventually, because she woke to Eleanor shaking her shoulder. The candle had burned down to a stub, casting wild shadows on the walls. "Someone's coming," Eleanor whispered. Sarah was on her feet instantly, the rifle in her hands. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Through the window, she could see the first gray hints of dawn touching the eastern horizon. A rider was approaching from the south, moving at a steady trot. "Is it Blackwood's men?" Thomas asked from his bed. Eleanor squinted through the gap in the blanket. "I can't tell. Just one rider." Sarah moved to the door, positioning herself to one side. Her palms were slick with sweat on the rifle stock. If it was Kane's partner coming to finish what they'd started, she would be ready. She'd already crossed that line once tonight. The hoofbeats grew closer, then stopped outside. A moment of silence stretched like pulled wire. "Mrs. Mackenzie?" A man's voice called. "It's Daniel Thornton. Is everything all right?" Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. She looked at Eleanor, who nodded. "Mr. Thornton," Eleanor called back, "we're grateful for your concern, but now isn't a good time." "I passed James on the Medicine Hat Road last night," Daniel said. "He was heading home. I rode ahead to warn you. There are men asking questions in town about your family. Rough types. James didn't know, but I thought you should." Sarah and Eleanor exchanged glances. Sarah's mind raced. Daniel didn't know about the mine, about Kane, about any of it, but he'd ridden through the night to warn them, which meant he genuinely cared. And they needed allies. "Thomas, stay back," Eleanor said quietly. She moved to the door and unbarred it, opening it just a crack. Dawn light spilled in, gray and cold. Daniel Thornton stood in their yard, his horse breathing steam in the morning air. He was hatless, his dark hair disheveled, and there was genuine worry in his eyes as he took in Eleanor's appearance. The dirt on her dress, the exhaustion in her face. "Mrs. Mackenzie, what's happened?" Eleanor hesitated, and Sarah saw her mother making a calculation. Trust was dangerous on the frontier, but isolation could be fatal. "Come inside," Eleanor said finally, quickly. Daniel dismounted and tied his horse to the fence post. As he stepped into the soddy, his eyes found Sarah, and she saw them widen at the sight of her, the blood on her temple, the bruises forming on her neck, the rifle in her hands. "Sarah," he started forward, then stopped, perhaps sensing the tension in the room. "What happened to you?" "We were attacked," Sarah said. The words felt strange in her mouth, too dramatic, too much like something from a dime novel. But they were true. Last night, men working for Cornelius Blackwood. Daniel's face hardened. Blackwood, I should have known. He looked at Eleanor. Where's James? In Medicine Hat, negotiating with the bank, Eleanor said. She closed the door and barred it again. He doesn't know what's happened here. Tell me everything, Daniel said. So they did. Eleanor spoke most of it. The Henderson letters, the mine discovery, Kane's attack. Sarah filled in the details of the fight, though she left out the worst of it, the moment when Kane had gone over the edge. Daniel listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When they finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the dawn was strengthening, painting the prairie in shades of gold and amber. It would have been beautiful if Sarah wasn't so terrified. You need to get to the territorial police, Daniel said finally. In Medicine Hat, show them the letter, tell them what happened. Blackwood has influence, but murder is murder. We can't leave, Sarah said. If we abandon the claim, even for a day, Blackwood's men could move in. They could destroy the mine entrance, hide the evidence. By the time we get back with the police, it'll be our word against his. And James, Eleanor added quietly, he'll be coming back this morning. If he rides into an ambush, the thought hung in the air like smoke. Sarah felt the weight of it pressing down on her shoulders. Her father, defeated and exhausted, riding home to find his family under siege. Or worse, riding into a trap set by desperate men who'd already killed once to protect their secret. Then someone needs to ride out and meet him, Daniel said. Warn him before he gets here. I can do it. That would leave us alone again, Eleanor said, though Sarah could hear the temptation in her voice. Not alone. A voice said from the window. They all spun around. Thomas had climbed onto the bed and was peering through the gap in the blanket. Riders coming, 3 of them, from the north. Sarah's blood turned to ice. She moved to the window, Daniel right behind her. 3 horsemen were indeed approaching, moving at a steady pace across the prairie. Even at this distance, she could see they were well armed. Blackwood's men? Daniel asked. Sarah strained to see. The lead rider was large, broad-shouldered. Not Kane. He was at the bottom of the mine shaft, but someone else from Blackwood's crew. The other 2 she didn't recognize. Probably, she said. Her mouth was dry. They're coming to finish what Kane started. Eleanor moved to the shelf where James kept his ammunition. Her hands were steady as she began loading cartridges into her pockets. Thomas, get under the bed. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Mama. Now, Thomas. The boy scrambled under the bed, his face pale with fear. Sarah felt a surge of anger so fierce it surprised her. These men, Blackwood and his hired thugs, had brought violence to their home, had terrorized a child, had murdered and schemed and threatened, all for silver in the ground. Well, they wouldn't have it. Not without a fight. Mrs. Mackenzie, Daniel said quietly, I'm not leaving you to face this alone. Eleanor looked at him for a long moment, and Sarah saw something pass between them, an understanding, a mutual respect. Daniel Thornton was young, barely older than Sarah herself, but he was offering to stand with them against armed men. It was the kind of courage that defined a person. Then we hold them off until James gets back, Eleanor said, and we don't let them anywhere near that mine. Sarah checked the rifle's load, then took up a position by the window. Daniel drew his revolver and moved to the other side of the door. Eleanor stood in the center of the room, James's old shotgun in her hands, looking like some biblical figure preparing for judgment. The riders came closer. Sarah could see their faces now, hard men, the kind who hired out their guns to the highest bidder. The lead rider raised his hand, and they stopped about 50 yards from the soddy, just out of easy rifle range. Mrs. Mackenzie, the lead rider called. Mr. Blackwood wants to talk. Come out peaceful, and nobody needs to get hurt. Eleanor's jaw tightened. She moved to the door but didn't open it. Tell Mr. Blackwood we have nothing to say to him. He's prepared to be generous. $500 for your claim. You and your family can walk away rich. $500. Sarah felt a bitter laugh rise in her throat. Yesterday, that would have seemed like a fortune. Today, knowing what was in that mine, it was an insult. We're not selling, Eleanor shouted back. Then we have a problem. The rider's voice hardened. Robert Kane didn't come back last night. We know you were at the mine. Where is he? Sarah and Eleanor exchanged glances. So they didn't know Kane was dead. That was something, at least. Mr. Kane tried to kill us, Sarah called out, surprising herself with her boldness. We defended ourselves. If you want to end up the same way, come closer. There was a moment of silence. Then the rider turned to his companions, and they conferred in low voices. Sarah's heart pounded so hard, she thought they might hear it across the distance. We're not going anywhere, the rider finally shouted. You can sit in there and starve, or you can come out and talk reasonable. Your choice. The three men dismounted and began setting up what looked like a camp. They were settling in for a siege. Daniel cursed under his breath. They're going to wait for nightfall, then try to rush the house. Or wait for James to come back and take him hostage, Sarah said. The thought made her sick. Eleanor moved away from the door, her face grim. Then we need to get word to him before he arrives. Daniel, you said you passed him on the road? About 5 miles south of here. He was moving slow. His horse looked tired. Sarah did the calculation in her head. If James had kept the same pace, he'd be home within the hour. They had to warn him. I'll go, she said. Both Eleanor and Daniel turned to stare at her. Sarah, no, Eleanor began. I'm the fastest rider, Sarah said. And I'm already hurt. If anyone's going to risk getting shot running past those men, it should be me. That's insane, Daniel said flatly. It's the only way. Sarah set down the rifle and moved to where they kept the coiled rope. Her hands were shaking again, but her mind was clear. The back wall. We dig through. I slip out while they're watching the front. I can be on a horse and gone before they realize. Eleanor's face was anguished. Sarah, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm telling you. Sarah met her mother's eyes. This is our land, Mama, our home. I'm not letting them take it. For a moment, she saw herself reflected in her mother's expression. The same stubborn determination, the same refusal to surrender. They were more alike than she'd ever realized. Eleanor nodded slowly. Then we dig fast, and you ride like the devil himself is chasing you. Because Sarah thought, as she began loosening the sod bricks at the back wall, he might be. The sun was fully up now, painting the prairie in harsh morning light. Outside, Blackwood's men waited. Somewhere to the south, her father was riding home, unaware of the trap closing around them all. And deep in the earth beneath their feet, silver waited in the darkness, the prize that had already cost so much blood. Sarah dug faster. The long night wasn't over yet.